She was tied to the railroad tracks with her 6-year-old son beside her, and the train was already coming. Daniel Hayes had patrolled this stretch of Colorado back road 1,000 times. He had never once found anything but silence and frozen gravel. But Rex wouldn't stop screaming. The German shepherd slammed himself against the window so hard the whole car shook. Daniel braked hard, grabbed his flashlight, and swept it down the tracks. And what he saw dropped him to his knees. That woman wasn't just some victim. What was hidden inside her jacket changed everything he thought he knew about justice, corruption, and the night itself. If this story moves you, subscribe to the channel right now and drop the name of your city in the comments below. I want to see exactly how far this story travels. The call sheet for that Thursday night had been nothing. Absolutely nothing. Daniel Hayes checked it twice before climbing into his patrol unit at 9:15. A routine sweep of the old Burlington Northern Rail Corridor outside Silver Ridge, Colorado. Population 4,000. Crime rate almost zero. The kind of assignment that senior officers handed to younger ones when they wanted to fill shift hours without burning fuel on anything real. Daniel was 30 years old. He had short, dark brown hair, a jaw that hadn't fully relaxed in 6 years of wearing a badge, and the kind of patience that only comes from working rural patrol. The patience of a man who has learned that nothing happens, right up until the moment it does. Rex rode in the back seat like he always did, paws forward, head level, ears slightly raised. The German shepherd had been with Daniel for 3 years, and in those 3 years Daniel had learned to read the dog the way some men read weather. Not with instruments, but with instinct. Rex was calm, until he wasn't. It started about 40 minutes into the shift. A low sound from the back seat. Not a bark, not a whine, something between the two. The kind of noise Rex made when something was wrong, but Daniel hadn't caught up to it yet. "Easy," Daniel said, not even turning around. Rex made the sound again, louder. Daniel adjusted the heat and slowed the cruiser. He scanned both sides of the road out of habit. Nothing on the left, nothing on the right. Just the flat darkness of late January in the San Luis Valley, and the twin rails cutting through the frozen ground ahead of him. "You hearing something, boy?" The dog's answer was to stand up in the back seat and press both front paws against the window. He was shaking. Not from cold. Daniel stopped the car. He sat there for 3 full seconds, engine idling, listening. And then, barely audible under the wind, he heard it. A child crying. Not the kind of crying that means a skinned knee or a bad dream. The kind that means terror. The kind that has already gone on too long. Daniel was out of the car before he had consciously decided to move. He pulled his flashlight and clicked it to full beam, sweeping it low across the track bed. The first thing he saw was the rope. Thick, knotted with deliberate intention. Not something that had blown in or caught on something. Someone had tied that rope. Then the beam found her. She was lying on her side across the first rail, her wrists bound behind her back, her face turned toward the cold ground. She was young, too young to be here, too young for what had been done to her. Her lips were moving, but whatever she was saying wasn't carrying over the wind. And beside her, pressed flat against her body for warmth, was a small boy. He couldn't have been more than 6 years old. He was the one crying. Daniel ran. Hey, I'm a police officer. I'm right here. I'm coming." The woman's head lifted. Her eyes found him, and what was in those eyes wasn't relief. It was warning. "Train," she said. Her voice was barely there. "Train. It's coming." Daniel heard it a half-second after she said it. The low mechanical thunder rolling through the ground before it ever reached the ears. Far off, but not far enough. He dropped to his knees and went straight for the child first. The boy grabbed onto his jacket with both fists and didn't let go. Daniel pressed him against his chest and pivoted back to the woman. "I've got you. Stay still." He had his utility knife out, sawing through the rope at her wrists. The cord was tight. Professional tight. Whoever had done this had not been in a hurry and had not expected anyone to undo it. "Please," the woman said. Her voice sharpened, cutting through the cold. "My son first. Get him off the tracks. I have him. He's with me. He's okay. Hold on." The rope gave. Daniel grabbed her arm, and they moved, stumbling, half carrying each other, off the trackbed and down into the frozen gravel on the far side of the rail. 30 seconds later, the freight train blew through without slowing. The force of the displaced air knocked Daniel sideways. The child buried his face in Daniel's collar and made no sound at all, as if he had already used up every sound he had. For a long moment, none of them moved. Daniel sat in the gravel, one arm around the boy, the other bracing the woman who had collapsed against his side. Rex had cleared the car through the open door and was now standing 6 inches from all three of them, not barking, just watching the darkness with the focused attention of something that knew the danger wasn't over. Daniel looked down at the woman. She was breathing, hard, shallow breaths that steamed in the cold air. Her face was pale in a way that had nothing to do with the temperature. Someone had hit her. Her lower lip was split. There was dried blood along her jaw that had been there long enough to crack. "Can you tell me your name?" Daniel asked. She didn't answer immediately. She was looking at the boy, checking him the way only a mother does, hands moving over his arms, his face, his fingers. "Noah." She pulled the boy close. "Is he okay?" "He's okay. He's right here." Daniel kept his voice even. "Ma'am, I need your name." She looked up at him then, and something in her expression shifted. Not relief exactly, more like calculation. Like someone running through a list of things she could and could not say. "Carter," she said finally. "Maya Carter." "Okay, Maya, Lieutenant Carter." She said it quietly, with no particular pride, just precision, like a correction that mattered. "United States Navy." Daniel went still. He looked at her again. The physical condition she was in, the professional knots on those ropes, the complete absence of a phone, a wallet, any identification he could see. "You're military?" "I need you to listen to me," she said, and her voice had changed. The cold had stripped it down to something direct and urgent. "I know what this looks like. I know what you're thinking. But what happened tonight was not random, and the people who did this are not gone. They are watching this road right now, and when they see your patrol lights still here—" "Maya." Daniel held her gaze. "One thing at a time. How long were you on those tracks?" She closed her eyes for a second. "I don't know, 2 hours, maybe more." "How did you get here?" "They drove us out." She shifted, tried to sit up straighter, and winced. "There were 3 of them. They knew what they were doing." "Who are they?" She hesitated. Rex made a sound, not the noise from before, something different, something lower. Daniel turned his head slowly and looked toward the road. There were no headlights, but there was a shape. Dark, slow-moving, coasting without lights about a quarter-mile back on the access road. The kind of approach someone uses when they don't want to announce themselves. "Get up," Daniel said quietly. "Right now." He moved them back to the cruiser without running, keeping low, using the tree line along the rail berm as cover. Maya moved better than she should have been able to. Whatever training had made her what she was, it hadn't left her entirely. She kept Noah close, and she didn't make a sound. They were inside the vehicle with the lights off inside 60 seconds. Daniel turned off the radio before it could squawk. He watched the shape on the access road in his side mirror. It had stopped. "They're looking for your car," Maya said from the back seat. She had pulled Noah across her lap and had her back against the door. "They know what they left on those tracks. If your cruiser is still here, they know something went wrong." "How many people know you were working this area tonight?" "4." She said it without blinking. "And only one of them would have known to send men to a rail corridor in Silver Ridge." Daniel looked at her in the mirror. "One of the 4, he said carefully, is someone inside a department." She didn't answer. She didn't have to. "Maya," his voice was low and steady, "is someone in my department connected to what you are working on?" The shape on the access road began moving again, slowly, angling toward them. "I need you to trust me," Daniel said. "Right now, in this car, with my dog and your son, I need to know what I'm dealing with." Maya looked at her son. Then she looked at Daniel. "I need you to trust me first," she said. "Drive. I'll explain while you drive, but we cannot stay on this road." Daniel put the cruiser in gear. Rex settled in the back, pressed close to the boy. And somewhere behind them, without headlights, the dark vehicle began to follow. Daniel drove with his headlights off for the first half mile. It wasn't protocol. It wasn't by the book. But the dark vehicle behind them had no plates he could read and no intention he could confirm. And every instinct he had been building for 6 years told him the same thing. Get distance, get quiet, get time. Maya didn't have to tell him twice to move. She was already watching the rear window, one hand holding Noah flat against her side, the other gripping the door handle in a way that told Daniel she was calculating exits, whether she meant to or not. "They still back there?" he asked. "They slowed when you turned." A pause. "They're not sure which way you went." "Good." He pressed the accelerator down. "Keep watching." Noah hadn't spoken since Daniel pulled him off the tracks. The boy sat tucked under his mother's arm with his eyes open and his jaw set in a way that was too old for a 6-year-old face. He wasn't crying anymore. He had gone somewhere else, that quiet interior place kids go when the world has shown them something they can't process yet. Daniel recognized it. He had seen it in adults, too. "Noah." Daniel glanced back quickly. "You doing okay, buddy?" The boy looked at him, didn't nod, didn't answer, just looked. But his shoulders came down about half an inch. Maya's hand tightened around him. "He doesn't talk much when he's scared," she said. "He never has." Her voice didn't soften when she said it. She stated it the way someone states a fact they have already made peace with. Daniel turned onto a county access road that ran parallel to a dry irrigation channel. He knew this area better than anyone in the department. He had grown up 40 miles east of Silver Ridge and had patrolled this corridor for 2 years before anyone else wanted the assignment. The old maintenance yards were 3 miles out, unlocked, unfenced, forgotten. "Talk to me," he said. "Everything. From the beginning." Maya was quiet for a moment. Not the quiet of someone deciding whether to trust him. That decision had already been made when she got in the car. This was the quiet of someone organizing classified information into language a civilian could follow without it getting anyone killed. "6 weeks ago," she started, "I was brought into a joint task force. Not Navy exclusively, interagency. The target was a domestic smuggling network running military-grade hardware through commercial freight corridors. Nothing exotic. Old tech mostly. Circuit components, guidance parts. The kind of equipment that individually looks like scrap and collectively can build something that shouldn't exist in private hands." Daniel kept his eyes on the road, running it through the rail lines. Rural freight, Short-haul regional carriers. The loads are small, they move fast, and nobody searches a boxcar full of industrial equipment in a town with 4,000 people. She exhaled slowly. The network was smart. Whoever built it understood federal inspection gaps at a level you don't get from YouTube. Meaning someone with clearance. Meaning someone who used to have clearance. She shifted in the seat, and he heard the small sound she made, the kind that means pain being managed, not acknowledged. I spent 3 weeks building a cover identity. Small contractor, supply chain background. I got inside far enough to confirm the route, confirm the timing, and pull financial records linking the operation to a private security firm called Draylen Consolidated. Never heard of it. You wouldn't have. They don't advertise. Her voice dropped. But they have contracts with 4 federal agencies and offices in 11 states. And somewhere inside their organizational structure, they have at least 2 serving law enforcement officials helping manage risk on the domestic side. Daniel's hands tightened on the wheel. He didn't say anything. He let her finish. 3 nights ago, my cover broke. I don't know exactly how. I was careful. I was more than careful. But someone inside the task force fed information to Draylen, and they moved fast. They didn't try to grab me at my location. They waited until I had Noah. Her jaw set. They knew about my son. They knew where he was staying. And they used that to control where I went. The silence in the car was complete, except for the tires on frozen gravel and Rex's steady breathing from the back seat. They took your son to pull you out of position, Daniel said. Yes. And then they tied you both to the tracks. Yes. No emotion in the word, just the flat, terrible fact of it. It was a message. To whoever was running the task force, to anyone watching. This is what happens when you get close. Daniel pulled off the road and sat with the engine idling. He looked in the mirror. No headlights. No movement. Just the darkness behind them, and the weight of what she had just told him, sitting in the cab of his patrol unit like a third passenger. You said 2 law enforcement officials, he said. Draylen has 2 contacts managing domestic risk. At minimum. Do you have names? She reached inside her jacket. He hadn't noticed it before, but there was a small, hard-sided case strapped against her ribs under the lining, the kind of case that survives water, impact, and cold. She pulled it out and opened it. Inside was a military flash drive, flat black, about the size of a thumb. I have everything, she said. Financials, communication logs, shipment records. The encrypted files are locked to my biometric, so nobody pulls this data without me present. She held the drive up for a second, then closed her fist around it. This is why they didn't just shoot me. They need this drive, and they need me alive to open it. Daniel stared at the drive in her hand. That was the moment it fully landed. Not the train, not the rope, not the dark vehicle following without lights. This moment, the realization that she was sitting in his car with evidence that multiple people had already tried to destroy, and that the men who tried were still out there, and that by finding her tonight, he had placed himself directly between them and what they wanted. Rex growled. Not the warning growl from before. Shorter, sharper. The one that meant something specific. Daniel's eyes went to the mirrors. Nothing visible. But Rex didn't false alarm. Not once in 3 years. We need to move, Daniel said. The maintenance yard, Maya said immediately. She had been watching his route. You were heading for the old maintenance yard on the irrigation road. You know this area? I mapped every shelter point within 12 miles of the target corridor. The ghost of something crossed her face. Not quite a smile, but close. I knew if something went wrong, I'd need options. He put the cruiser back in gear without another word. They covered the remaining distance fast, pulled into the yard, and killed the engine under the overhang of the equipment shed. For a moment, the only sound was Noah's breathing. Slow now, almost sleep-heavy. His body finally deciding the immediate danger had passed, even if his mind hadn't caught up. Maya looked at her son for a long moment. Then she said, quietly, "There's something I didn't tell you yet." Daniel turned in the seat to face her. "One of the two names in those files," she said. "One of the law enforcement contacts tied to Draylen Consolidated." She paused. "He's assigned to Silver Ridge. He's in your department." Daniel felt the air go out of the car. "And tonight," she said, "he was the one who assigned you to this patrol route." He didn't speak. Couldn't. The pieces were assembling themselves without his permission. The call sheet, the empty corridor, the exact stretch of track he had been sent to cover tonight. A route nobody checked. A road where a freight train ran at 11:42 and wouldn't stop for anything. He hadn't stumbled onto Maya Carter and her son. He had been sent to the one place on Earth where he could have found them. And whoever arranged this patrol had been certain he would arrive too late. Rex climbed into the front seat without being invited and pressed his head against Daniel's arm. Daniel sat with his hands on his knees and breathed. "You know his name," Daniel said. It wasn't a question. Maya looked at him steadily. "I know his name. And you're not going to tell me yet." "Not yet." Her voice was careful, even. "Not until I know who you trust enough to call. Because if you call the wrong person, we don't survive the next hour." Outside, somewhere in the distance, a vehicle door closed. Daniel heard it. Maya heard it. Rex was already on his feet. "They found us," she said. Daniel was out of the cruiser in 3 seconds flat. He didn't tell Maya to stay down. She was already moving, pulling Noah low across the back seat, one hand covering his head, the other pressed flat against the door. 6 years of Navy training didn't disappear just because someone had left her for dead on a railroad track. She moved like someone who had rehearsed emergencies until they became reflex. Rex dropped out behind Daniel and went silent. That was the thing about Rex that newer officers never understood. The dog didn't bark when the threat was real and close. He went quiet. Every sense locked forward, body low, waiting for direction. Daniel pressed against the side of the shed and listened. One door. One vehicle. No voices yet, which meant they were being careful, which meant they were professionals, which meant this was not going to be a conversation. He counted to 5. Then he heard boots on frozen ground, slow, deliberate, moving along the far side of the equipment building. 2 sets of footsteps, maybe 3. He went back to the cruiser door and opened it 2 inches. "How many did you see earlier?" he whispered. Maya's voice came back at the same level. 3 in the vehicle that followed us. There may be a second team." Second team. They don't send 3 men for a Navy SEAL. Flat. Certain. They send 3 men to handle a local cop who stumbled into something. For me, they send more. Daniel absorbed that without reacting to it. He reached inside the cruiser and unclipped the radio from the dash mount, then clipped it to his belt. His service weapon was already in his hand. He looked at Rex. 1 hand signal. The dog moved left, sliding along the wall without a sound. "Stay down," Daniel said to Maya. "Both of you, no matter what you hear." He heard Noah's voice for the first time. Small, tight, barely above a breath. "Mom?" "I know, baby," Maya said. "I know." The first man came around the corner of the building fast, and Daniel was already moving. He didn't give ground. He stepped into the man's path, got his weapon up, and said the word the way they train you to say it. Hard, loud, no negotiation in it. Police, don't move. The man froze. He was big, bigger than Daniel, wearing dark work clothes and carrying himself with the kind of physical confidence that comes from doing this kind of work for years. He had no badge, no uniform. His hands were visible, but his eyes were moving, scanning past Daniel toward the cruiser. Hands where I can see them, now! The man's hands came up slowly. Too slowly. The kind of slow that means you are waiting for something. Daniel heard it before he saw it. Movement on his right. Another man coming from the far end of the shed at a run. Rex hit the second man at full speed before Daniel had time to call it. The impact was brutal and immediate. Rex drove him sideways, and the man went down hard, and the sound he made was not one Daniel felt sorry about. Rex held position, and the man stopped moving. The first man used the distraction. 2 steps backward, breaking line of sight, gone behind the building before Daniel could close the distance. He did not chase him. Chasing meant leaving Maya and Noah exposed. He backed toward the cruiser instead, scanning, breathing controlled. 2 down, 1 loose, he said through the window. I need you to climb into the front seat, right now. Maya was already moving. She got Noah up front and buckled him herself, then dropped into the passenger seat with the efficiency of someone who had done vehicle transitions under fire. Her face was pale, but her hands were steady. Daniel got behind the wheel and had the engine running in one motion. He didn't turn the lights on. He put the cruiser in reverse and backed out of the shed in a straight line, watching the mirrors. The third man appeared at the edge of the building. He had something in his hand that was not a flashlight. Down! Maya grabbed Noah and pulled him flat across her lap, a half second before the rear window exploded inward. Daniel floored it. The cruiser fishtailed on frozen gravel, caught, and launched forward onto the access road. He drove without lights for 30 seconds, turned hard onto the county road, and then the highway, and then he turned the lights on and drove like every second mattered. Because it did. Rex was bleeding from a cut above his ear. Nothing serious. The dog sat upright and alert like it was a normal Tuesday. Noah was not crying. He was staring at the broken rear window with enormous eyes. Hey, Daniel kept his voice level. Hey, buddy, look at me. The boy looked at him. Rex is okay. You're okay. Your mom is okay. He held the boy's gaze in the mirror for 1 second. I've got you. Noah looked at Rex. Then he reached back and put one small hand on the dog's nose. Rex licked it. They drove for 11 minutes before anyone spoke about anything that mattered. Daniel had been running options in his head the entire time. Who to call, where to go, who he could trust inside a department that might already have one corrupt officer and possibly more. The list of safe contacts had narrowed itself down to almost nothing by the time Maya spoke. You need to hear the name, she said. Daniel kept driving. I'm listening. She was quiet for one more beat. Not hesitation, he understood now, but the weight of what she was about to change. Because once she said it, the world they were driving through would rearrange itself permanently around that fact. Deputy Chief Ronald Voss. Daniel said nothing. He drove. He drove for a full quarter-mile without speaking, and the silence in the car during those seconds was the loudest thing he had ever heard. Ronald Voss. 22 years on the force. The man who had personally signed Daniel's field certification 3 years ago. The man who gave the eulogy at Officer Mike Hartley's funeral last spring. The man who had called Daniel into his office 2 weeks ago, clapped a hand on his shoulder, and told him he was one of the best young officers the department had. The man who had assigned Daniel to patrol the Burlington Northern Rail corridor tonight. You're certain, Daniel said. His voice came out completely even, which surprised him. The communication logs on that drive show 41 direct contacts between Voss and a Draylen consolidated number registered to their security director over 8 months. Maya didn't look away from him. 14 of those contacts occurred within 48 hours of federal inspection events along the rail corridor. He was running interference, tipping them off before every sweep. Daniel stopped, started again. That's enough to end him. That's enough to end all of them. She reached into the case and held the drive up. This is why they didn't shoot me in the field and leave me there. They need this drive unlocked and wiped, and my biometric is the only way to do it. So they needed me alive long enough to... She stopped. Daniel watched her face change. It was fast, a flicker of something that passed through her eyes and was gone before Noah could see it. Long enough to what, Maya? Her jaw tightened. Long enough to make me cooperate. The silence stretched. Noah, Daniel said quietly. She didn't answer. She pulled the boy a half-inch closer without appearing to move at all. Daniel's stomach dropped, because he understood now what the railroad tracks had actually been. Not just a murder scene. A leverage point. Tie the child beside her. Let the clock run. Make her watch. Give her exactly enough time to understand what would happen if she didn't hand over the drive. Except someone had calculated wrong. They had not calculated for Rex. Daniel pulled off the highway at a closed service station and killed the engine. He sat with both hands on the wheel and thought for 30 seconds. He had no safe house. He had no off-grid contact. He had a wounded canine, a Navy SEAL operative with classified evidence, a 6-year-old child who had already lived through more than most adults, and a department he could no longer fully trust. Who else was on your task force? He asked. Someone you trust completely. One person. FBI Special Agent Claire Dunning, out of the Denver field office. I haven't been able to reach her since my cover broke. She paused. They may have gotten to her communication channel. Or she may have gone dark on purpose. Give me the number. You can't call from your department radio. I'm not going to. Daniel reached into the glove box and pulled out a personal cell phone. Old, basic, pay-as-you-go. He had carried it for emergencies since his 2nd year on the job. Some habits from before the badge died hard. Maya looked at the phone. Then she looked at him with something new in her expression. Not quite trust, but the closest thing to it he had seen from her. She recited the number from memory. Daniel dialed. 4 rings. 5. Then a woman's voice. Careful, flat, giving nothing away. Who is this? My name is Daniel Hayes. I'm a patrol officer with the Silver Ridge PD. I have Maya Carter with me. She's alive. She has the drive. A long pause. Where are you right now? The voice had changed completely. The flatness was gone. What replaced it was controlled urgency. About 9 miles east of Silver Ridge, on State Highway 12. Don't move. Don't use department radio. Don't contact anyone in your department. A beat. Is she injured? Yes. How bad? Daniel glanced at Maya. I'll survive, she said, loud enough for the phone. Another pause on the line. Then, Officer Hayes, I need to tell you something, and I need you to hear it clearly. Go ahead. We've been looking for Lieutenant Carter for 72 hours. Her voice dropped. And we have been monitoring communication inside the Silver Ridge PD for the last 48 of those hours, because we believe the leak in her task force runs directly through that department. Daniel closed his eyes for exactly 1 second. The officer who assigned you to that patrol route tonight, Agent Dunning continued, we have his name. Voss, Daniel said. Ronald Voss. The silence on the other end lasted 3 full seconds. How do you know that name? Because she told me. Daniel looked at Maya. And because I'm starting to understand that I wasn't supposed to find her in time. He tightened his grip on the phone. But I did. And now I need to know what to do with that. Dunning's voice came back steady and quiet. You stay exactly where you are. You keep that drive safe. And you do not, under any circumstances, let anyone from your department know your location. Daniel lowered the phone. Outside, somewhere on the highway behind them, a set of headlights appeared, slowing down. Rex was already standing. The headlights didn't pass. They slowed to a crawl about 200 yards back and held position, idling on the highway shoulder like whoever was behind the wheel was deciding something. Daniel watched them in the mirror and didn't move. Didn't breathe wrong, just calculated. Same vehicle? He asked. Maya had already turned in her seat, eyes on the lights. Different. The one from the rail corridor was a pickup. That's a sedan. She paused. Two-door. Engine's running rough. That's not a professional tale. That's someone who found us by luck, or by scanner. Department scanner. Yes. Daniel looked at the radio clipped to his belt. Any officer in the county could pull his patrol unit's last logged position if they knew what frequency the cruiser transmitted on. And every officer in the Silver Ridge Department knew exactly that. He reached down and turned the radio off completely. The sedan didn't move. If they called our position in, Daniel said, we have maybe 4 minutes before someone else arrives. Then we move in 3, Maya said. He was already reaching for the ignition. Noah hadn't made a sound. He was sitting straight in the passenger seat, with Rex pressed against his side, one small hand buried in the dog's coat. He was watching Daniel with the focused, unblinking attention of a child who has decided that the man behind the wheel is the only fixed point in a world that keeps moving. Daniel met his eyes in the mirror for 1 second. Hold on tight, buddy. Noah grabbed the door handle with his free hand. Daniel pulled out onto the highway, going north, away from the sedan, away from Silver Ridge, away from anything connected to the department and the name that was now sitting in the center of everything, like a stone dropped in still water. He drove for 6 minutes before he let himself think clearly. The problem wasn't the men in the field. The problem wasn't even Voss. Not directly. Not yet. The problem was geometry. Right now, Maya had the evidence. He had Maya. Agent Dunning had a location and a promise to come. But between here and the moment federal support arrived, there was a window. And inside that window, 3 things could still go catastrophically wrong. The drive could be taken. Maya could be taken. Or Daniel could be removed from the equation entirely, leaving a 6-year-old child alone in a patrol cruiser on a frozen highway in January. He said none of this out loud. Maya said it for him. You're thinking about the window, she said. The gap between now and when Dunning gets here. How long was she estimating? She didn't say. Denver to Silver Ridge is 2 hours minimum. I know, which means we have 2 hours to stay invisible inside a county where at least one senior officer is actively working against us and at least one field team is already mobile. I know. She said it without flinching, and the absence of panic in her voice was both reassuring and unsettling, the kind of calm that only exists in people who have already been in worse situations and survived them. What's your best option for a secure location? Something nobody in your department would connect to you. Daniel thought about that. There was a place. Not a safe house, nothing that formal. An old ranch property 7 miles outside town that belonged to his uncle, Walt Hayes, who had moved to New Mexico 2 years back and hadn't sold the land yet. No listed address in any department record. No connection to Daniel's personnel file. The kind of place that existed below the radar because it had never been relevant to anything official. "I've got somewhere," he said. "How far?" 12 minutes. She nodded once, settled back, pressed her palm flat against Noah's back in a slow, rhythmic motion. The unconscious gesture of a mother steadying her child's breathing, without drawing attention to the fact that she was doing it. Daniel watched it in his peripheral vision and felt something shift in his chest that he didn't have a name for. He focused on the road. They were 4 miles out when his personal cell phone buzzed. He had left it on the seat. The number on the screen was not Agent Dunning's number. It was a Silver Ridge area code, local, and he did not recognize it. He let it ring twice, then something made him answer. "Hayes." The voice on the other end was male, calm, and completely familiar. The voice of a man who had been a fixture of the Silver Ridge PD for longer than Daniel had been alive. "Daniel!" Ronald Voss spoke his name like a greeting between friends. "I've been worried about you, son. You went off radio about 40 minutes ago. Where are you?" The inside of the patrol cruiser went absolutely still. Maya heard the voice. He saw it in her face, the way her jaw tightened and her eyes went flat and hard. She reached out slowly and put her hand over Noah's ear, not covering it, just resting there. A quiet, deliberate act of protection. Daniel kept his voice normal, even. The same voice he used during traffic stops when the situation was already wrong, and he needed the other person to believe it wasn't. "Sorry about the radio, sir. I had a technical issue. I'm running a secondary check on the North Corridor, verifying something I saw earlier in the shift." A pause on the line. "The North Corridor," Voss said. "Alone?" "Rex is with me." Another pause. Longer this time. The kind of pause that isn't uncertainty. It's calculation. "I got a report that your unit was spotted near the Hendricks service station on Highway 12. "That's not exactly the North Corridor, Daniel." Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. He said nothing. "Why don't you bring the unit back in?" Voss said. "We can debrief in person. I'll have coffee ready." A small, easy laugh. The laugh of a man who had been performing normalcy for so long it had become second nature. "I'll be in as soon as I finish up out here, sir." "Daniel." The warmth left the voice. Not all at once, just enough to let him know it was intentional. "Come in now." Daniel ended the call. He put the phone face down on the seat and kept driving. His heart was running fast, but his hands were steady. 6 years of patrol work had given him the ability to function while afraid. He was using every bit of it right now. "He knows we're mobile," Maya said. Her voice was low and controlled. "He doesn't know exactly where we are, or he would have sent someone instead of calling." "He's stalling," Daniel said. "Keeping me on the line long enough to get a position." "Can he trace that phone?" "It's a prepaid, but if he's got anyone monitoring cell tower activity in this county..." "He does," she said. "Assume he does." Daniel turned the phone off and put it in the glove box. Rex shifted in the back seat. Not standing, just repositioning. The dog's head was up, eyes forward, ears at full attention. Something in the air outside had changed, or something in the car had changed, and the dog had felt it before either of the humans had named it. Noah looked at Rex. Then he looked at Daniel. "Are the bad guys coming?" he asked. The first complete sentence he had spoken all night. His voice was small but steady, and there was no tremor in it. Just the honest, direct question of a child who has decided he is old enough to hear the truth. Daniel looked at him in the mirror. He thought about lying, considered it for 1 full second, then let it go. "Some of them might be," he said, "but we're faster, and we're smarter, and Rex is with us, okay?" Noah thought about that with the seriousness of a much older person. Then he nodded. "Okay," he said. They reached the ranch property with 2 minutes to spare before the first set of unauthorized headlights appeared on the access road behind them. Daniel had barely gotten the cruiser inside the equipment garage when the lights swept the property entrance. He killed the engine, killed every light inside the vehicle, and put his hand on Rex's collar. The dog went still. They sat in complete darkness and listened. The vehicle outside moved slowly. It passed the entrance, continued down the road, did not stop. Daniel exhaled. "Scout pass," Maya said. "They're confirming the property. They'll be back." "How long?" 10 minutes, maybe less if they have more than one vehicle working the area. She turned to face him fully for the first time since they left the highway. In the darkness, he couldn't read her expression clearly, but her voice carried everything her face couldn't show. "Daniel, if this goes wrong tonight, if something happens to me, the drive opens with my right thumb. The unlock sequence is 20 seconds of sustained contact." "It's not going to come to that." "I know," she said it firmly, "but you needed to know anyway." He nodded. She reached into the case and pulled out the drive a second time, and this time she didn't hold it up. She placed it in his hand, closed his fingers around it. "Hold on to this," she said. "I fight better without anything in my hands." He looked at the drive. Then he looked at her. "You're planning to go out there?" "I'm planning to make sure we're not sitting still when they come back." She was already checking the small tactical knife she had pulled from inside her boot, the one he hadn't known was there. "They expect a patrol officer and an injured woman hiding. They're not expecting what they're actually going to get." "Maya, I've been passive for the last 3 hours," she said. "I was tied to a railroad track, and I let it happen because Noah was with them, and I had no options. I have options now." She looked at her son. "Noah, stay with Rex. Do not move from this vehicle, no matter what you hear. Can you do that?" Noah looked at her for a long moment. The boy, who had barely spoken all night, reached out and grabbed her hand with both of his. "Come back," he said. She pressed his hands between her palms, held them there, looked at him with the full weight of everything a mother can carry in one look. "I always come back," she said. Then she was out of the vehicle and gone into the darkness before Daniel could stop her. He sat for exactly 3 seconds. Then he looked at Rex. "You stay with him," he said. Rex put his chin on Noah's knee. Daniel checked his weapon, pocketed the drive, and went out after her. He found her positioned at the corner of the garage before the vehicles returned. 2 this time, moving in from opposite ends of the access road. Coordinated. Professional. Voss had called in everything he had. 2 vehicles, Maya said without turning. 4 men minimum, possibly 5. I count the same. The one on the left is running point. Take him out of the equation first, and the formation collapses. She paused. Can you do that without firing? Depends on how cooperative he is. He won't be. Then we adapt. She looked at him then. Quick, direct. You're not what I expected when I woke up on those tracks. What did you expect? Honestly? The ghost of a smile, gone as fast as it came. Someone who would call it in and wait for backup. My backup, Daniel said, is currently sitting on a 6-year-old's knee. She almost laughed. Then the first vehicle stopped 20 feet from the garage, and a door opened, and there was no more time for anything except what came next. The man who stepped out called into the darkness with the casual authority of someone who believed the advantage was his. Hayes, Deputy Chief Voss wants to resolve this quietly. Hand over the woman and the drive. You walk away clean. Nobody has to know you were involved. Daniel didn't move, didn't respond. Beside him, Maya shifted her weight forward. Ready. The man waited 5 seconds. Then his voice hardened. Last chance, officer. Daniel raised his weapon and stepped into the open. You're on private property without a warrant, he said. And I have every conversation Voss made in the last 8 months on a drive in my left pocket. He kept his voice level and loud enough for everyone present to hear it clearly. So I want you to think very carefully about whether quiet is still an option for any of you. A long silence. Then movement from the second vehicle. A door opening. A figure stepping out that Daniel recognized instantly, even in the dark, from 22 years of seeing that silhouette in the hallways of the Silver Ridge PD. Ronald Voss walked forward slowly, hands visible, wearing a calm expression that Daniel now understood had never meant anything at all. Put the weapon down, Daniel, he said. You're a good officer. You don't want to end your career over someone else's war. Daniel looked at the man who had certified him, who had shaken his hand, who had sent him down a frozen road tonight to die at 11:42 when the freight train arrived. I'm not ending my career, Daniel said. I'm starting the rest of it. Rex's bark split the night from inside the garage, sharp, explosive, the signal bark that meant a threat had moved where it shouldn't. Someone had circled around back. Voss smiled, and Daniel understood they had been talking to buy exactly the same thing. Time. Rex's bark didn't stop. It came again, harder, more urgent, from inside the garage, and Daniel knew that sound the way he knew his own heartbeat. That wasn't a warning bark. That was Rex telling him someone had hands on the vehicle. Someone had hands on Noah. Daniel moved before Voss finished his smile. He turned and ran back toward the garage entrance, and he heard Maya go right while he went left. No communication, no signal. Just two people who had spent the last 3 hours learning exactly how the other one thought. She took the open ground toward the second vehicle. He took the garage. He came through the side door low and fast and found the man inside immediately. Large, dark jacket, already at the passenger door with his hand on the handle. Rex was planted between the man and the car, not barking now, just standing, immovable, every muscle locked. The man had one hand raised to push the dog back, and had not yet decided whether he was willing to reach past him. He made the wrong decision. He reached. Rex took his forearm. The man went down with a sound that echoed off the walls, and Daniel was on him before the echo died, knee to the ground, weapon out, voice hard and certain. Don't move. The man didn't move. Daniel cuffed him with the zip ties from his belt kit. The same zip ties he had used on traffic stops and disturbance calls, and one memorable night involving a very agitated ranch hand outside Alamosa. He used them now, with the same efficiency and no ceremony whatsoever. He looked up at the back seat. Noah was pressed into the corner behind Rex, both arms wrapped around the dog's neck, face buried in the dog's coat. Noah. Daniel kept his voice completely even. You okay? The boy lifted his head. His eyes were wet, but his jaw was set. Rex bit him, Noah said. Rex did exactly right, Daniel said. Stay down. He was back outside in 8 seconds. What he came back out to was not what he had left. Maya had closed the distance to the second vehicle, while Voss was focused on Daniel's retreat, and the man who had been standing beside Voss was now on the ground, with his hands behind his back, and the look on his face that suggested he had not expected the injured woman to move that fast, or that decisively. Maya stood 6 feet from Voss, with the tactical knife visible, and her weight balanced forward. Not threatening exactly. Ready. Voss had not moved. He was watching her, with the careful, recalculating expression of a man who has had the board flip on him and is determining whether to overturn the table entirely. The first vehicle, the one with the 4 men, had not advanced. Daniel understood why when he looked closer. 2 of the 4 doors were open. The men had started to get out and then stopped, frozen, because from the far end of the access road, 3 sets of headlights were now visible, moving fast. And the vehicles they belonged to were not pickup trucks or unmarked sedans. They were federal SUVs. Black. Moving with the kind of coordinated speed that comes from someone who left Denver the moment she hung up the phone and drove like the road was a personal matter. Agent Claire Dunning had not waited 2 hours. She had been 40 minutes out when Daniel called. She had been running dark and silent the entire time. Voss heard the vehicles, saw the lights, and for one long moment he stood completely still in the frozen dark and let the full weight of what was happening settle onto him without flinching, the way a man does when he has always known, somewhere underneath the performance, that the night like this one was coming. Then he turned and looked at Daniel directly. "You don't understand what you've done," he said. His voice had lost the warmth and the authority and everything he had built on top of the truth. What was left was something rawer, not quite regret, not quite anger, something that had no clean name. This network, the people connected to it, they don't stop because one link breaks. "Then we'll break more of them," Daniel said. Voss shook his head slowly. "You're a good officer, Daniel. You always were." He said it like he meant it. Maybe he did. "That's the only reason I gave you that route tonight. I thought you'd get there after." The words landed like something physical. Daniel heard them fully. After. Not before. Voss had not sent him to that corridor to find her. He had sent him there so that when the freight train cleared and the bodies were discovered, a clean and trusted officer would be the one to file the report. An officer nobody would question. An officer whose integrity would make the official record airtight. He had used Daniel's honesty as a tool, and Rex had destroyed the entire plan. Daniel looked at the man for one more second. Then he lowered his weapon and stepped back as the federal vehicles came to a stop and doors opened, and Agent Dunning came forward at a pace that made clear she was done being careful and was now entirely in the business of finishing this. "Ronald Voss," she said. "Federal custody. Right now." Voss looked at her, then at Daniel, then at Maya, who had not moved and had not lowered the knife, and whose expression contained 22 years of everything she had built and protected and nearly lost on those railroad tracks. He put his hands up. The next 4 hours were controlled chaos of the federal variety, the kind that looks like order from the outside and feels like a contained explosion from the inside. Dunning's team processed the scene, secured the drive, and began the chain of custody work that would eventually dismantle Draylen Consolidated across 4 states and 11 offices. 3 of the field operatives were taken into custody at the ranch property. The 4th, the one who had run from Daniel at the maintenance shed, was picked up 40 minutes later at a gas station outside Walsenburg, still on foot, still trying to figure out how the night had gone so wrong, so fast. Voss said nothing after the cuffs went on. He sat in the back of a federal vehicle and stared at his own hands with the patient, hollowed-out look of a man mentally counting the years. Daniel gave his statement twice, once at the scene and once inside a warm vehicle with a federal recorder running, and Dunning asking questions in the precise, methodical way of someone who already knows most of the answers and is building a structure that will hold in court. He told her everything. The call sheet. The route assignment. The dark vehicle without lights. Maya's words in his cruiser. The drive. The phone call from Voss. The voice that had been friendly and warm right up until it couldn't afford to be anymore. He told her about Rex. "Your K9 initiated the discovery?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel said. "He heard them before I did. I didn't even slow down until he hit the window." Dunning wrote something, looked up. "Officer Hayes, without the K9 response, what's your honest assessment of the timeline?" Daniel didn't need to calculate it. He had already done that math, sitting in the gravel beside the tracks, with the freight train noise still ringing in his ears. "We would have been 45 seconds too late," he said. Dunning nodded once and wrote it down. They let him see Maya before the medical team took over completely. She was sitting on the rear bumper of one of the federal vehicles, with a thermal blanket around her shoulders, and a paramedic who had clearly been instructed not to argue with her about anything. Noah was pressed against her side, with his head on her shoulder and his eyes at half-mast, the specific boneless exhaustion of a child who has finally decided the world is safe enough to sleep in. Rex was sitting at her feet. Nobody had told him to be there. He had simply walked over and stayed. Daniel crouched down and checked the cut above the dog's ear, cleaned now, closed with a butterfly strip by the same paramedic who had given up arguing. Rex turned and looked at him, with the same steady, unhurried expression he always wore. Not proud, not performing, just present. "Good boy," Daniel said quietly. Rex's tail moved once. That was enough. Maya looked at Daniel over her son's head. The bruising on her face was more visible under the federal vehicle's lights than it had been in the dark, and her left shoulder was wrapped where the medic had gotten to her. And none of that touched the quality in her eyes, which was something clear and direct and completely undefeated. "I owe you something," she said. "You don't. I owe you honesty, at least." She shifted carefully, keeping Noah settled. "When I woke up on those tracks and saw your light coming, I didn't think it was real. I thought I was already gone and my mind was building something to make it easier." She paused. "Then Rex barked and I thought, no, that's too specific. That's real." Daniel looked at the dog. "He does that," he said. "He saved my life twice tonight," she said. "Once on the tracks and once in that garage." She reached down with her free hand and rested it on Rex's head, gently, the way you touch something you understand the full value of. "You were the one who hurt us first," she said to the dog. Quiet, private, the kind of thing you say when you mean it for nobody else. Rex looked up at her and wagged his tail once. Not performing, not seeking anything. Just a dog who had done what dogs who love their people do. He had refused to let Daniel drive past. He had refused to accept the silence. He had made enough noise to save 2 lives, and, in doing so, had pulled a thread that unraveled 8 months of corruption, a weapons smuggling network, and a 22-year career built on a lie. Daniel stood up. He looked out at the property, the vehicles, the agents, the Colorado dark beginning to soften at its edges, with the first pale suggestion of early morning. He thought about the call sheet for the night. Nothing. Routine corridor sweep. Population 4,000. Crime rate almost 0. He thought about Voss sitting in that federal vehicle with his hands in his lap. He thought about a 6-year-old boy who had held a door handle and said, "Okay," and meant it. He thought about the drive in his pocket, now transferred to federal custody. 41 communications, 8 months of interference, 11 offices, 4 agencies. All of it intact. All of it because a German shepherd had refused to let a quiet night stay quiet. Agent Dunning appeared at his shoulder. "We're going to need you available for the next several weeks," she said. "Interviews, testimony, federal review of the department's personnel structure. It's going to be a process." "I know," Daniel said. "Your department is going to look very different on the other side of this." It needed to. She looked at him for a moment. The kind of look that means someone is deciding whether to say something. Then she said it. "For what it's worth, the 45 seconds, you should know that." He did know it. He would know it for the rest of his life. He walked back to Rex and clipped the lead back on. And the dog fell into step beside him without being asked. The easy, natural stride of a partnership that needed no explanation and no ceremony. The truth had survived tonight, not because of rank or resources or the long arm of federal authority. It had survived because one honest officer drove a lonely corridor at 11 o'clock on a January night. And beside him sat a dog who loved him enough to never let him miss what mattered. Sometimes that is all it takes. Sometimes that is everything.